Good evening and welcome to tonight's performance and discussion with Jimmy Chamberlin. My name is Christina Schutt, and I am proud to be the Executive Director of the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum. We are so excited that you all are joining us. If you didn't get the chance before the show, we hope you'll come back, actually up till January 23rd, and see our exhibition, A World of Music from Illinois, the State of Sound, which is just actually right out the doors in our plaza. It's an incredible exhibition where you get to see one-of-a-kind artifacts from these artists, including Jimmy Chamberlin's drum heads. So be sure to stop by and see that exhibit before it goes away. I also want to remind you that we've got a full slate of exciting events and more musical performances coming your way, including a performance by Maggie Brown on January 13th of 2022. So we hope you'll come out for that. I also want to remind you, for those of you who live here in the Springfield area, we will be participating for the first time in the Downtown Springfield Holiday Walks. And so the museum will be open until 7 p.m. on Wednesdays and Saturdays throughout the month of December. So again, you can find out more information about that by visiting our website, presidentlincoln.illinois.gov. And then I'm going to let y'all in on a little secret since we're here tonight. Is that okay? Okay, so you can join Jimmy Chamberlin, who's our newest member, and join Team Lincoln, our brand new membership program that we are launching on December 1. And we hope you all will take the opportunity to learn more about the program. It's incredible. You'll get to see behind the scenes programming, including learning a little bit more about the Ghost Show and how all the incredible tech work happens here. So you can check our website to find out more information about signing up. But we're so excited about our brand new membership program, and we hope that you'll join Jimmy Chamberlin and become a member yourself. And so without further ado, I want to introduce Lance Towser, our Director of Exhibits and Shows. So thank you all for being here, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Don't forget to remind people to silence your cell phone.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. We got a really cool event for you tonight, let me tell you. I am Lance Towser. I'm the Director of Exhibits and Shows here at the museum. I lead an amazing team that put together the exhibit, The State of Sound, A World of Music from Illinois. Hopefully most of you have seen it already. If you haven't, make sure you check it out. I also want to welcome our radio winners, the radio listeners from YMG, WYMG, from WQLZ, and from The Mix. All of those people up here, thank you for being here. I am really excited about our guest tonight. Rolling Stone ranked him one of the greatest rock drummers of all time. He's ahead of Mick Fleetwood. Sorry, Mick. He's ahead of Tony Thompson from Chic. He's ahead of even Questlove. He is, he's a revered musician in the field of rock. He has, as part of the Smashing Pumpkins, he has won American Music Awards. He has won 2 Grammys. He's won, I got it written down, hold on a second, there's a lot. He's got gold and platinum records. In fact, the landmark album, Melancholy and Infinite Sadness, is 10 times platinum, 10 million records sold. He is, again, Grammys, multiple MTV Video Awards, even a VH1 Fashion Award. I'm going to have to ask him about that. Not bad for a kid from Joliet. And Smashing Pumpkins released a record in 2020 called Seer, critically acclaimed. Another double album just came out. So please give me a big, warm welcome for Mr. Jimmy Chamberlin. That's pretty awesome. Whew, that was pretty awesome. Well, welcome.
How are you, Lance?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm going to take the sweater off. I'm
Oh,
sweating.
Brent, take it off. Here we go. Drum roll.
Yeah, sorry. Hopefully I won't rip my mic off. Thank you.
Hey,
I don't
calm
get
down.
that as much
I think they were doing
anymore.
that to me, actually.
Yeah,
That's
probably.
all right. Good. Thank you for being here. Appreciate this.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being part of the exhibit, too.
It's an honor, really.
You had a chance to walk through it today. What's your takeaways? What do you think about our story we're telling?
So much of that stuff, whether I was kind of present for it or not, is a part of my evolution as a musician, right? I mean, most notably, the blues, right? I mean, I played in a blues band out of Joliet when I was 15 with a bunch of ironworkers. And we were fortunate enough to play a lot of the Southside blues clubs. They let me in for whatever reason to play, but I got to sit in with Jimmy Johnson at Muddy Waters in Burnham Harbor. And because of my relationships with those guys, I knew like Junior Wells and Buddy Guy, Sun Seals. I would go see those guys sneak into Kingston Mines or Blues and watch those guys late night sets, and just incredible, the power and, just the cultural connection, what they represented, the story they were telling. I mean, there was so much information contained in that music for me as a young kid, and really the simplicity of it and the soulfulness of it really got me thinking about our role as a musician in a different way, right? Like the fact that we're storytellers and that we're communicators and that our job is to communicate or be self-expression as a means of telling a story, right? And those guys were just masters. So, and then, obviously the Cheap Trick, who I've known, Rick Nielsen and Bunny and Xander since I was 11 years old. My brother played in a band that opened for Cheap Trick, so I used to go down to Champaign, spend summers down there with my brother and hang out with those guys. But even like Pez Band, Material Issue, everybody. I played with Mavis Staples at the Metro. So literally everybody in that room I have a connection to some way, maybe a degree or 2 degrees of separation, but that's the great thing about Illinois, Chicago. You can draw a straight line from somebody like me to just about anybody in that room and start to talk about their influence and their impact on somebody like me.
Yeah, and we try to make an argument that yeah, you rest, I'll talk. We try to make a real argument that Illinois has offered the world, if you will, some amazing music, amazing musicians. We had I don't call it a benefit, it was a sort of a byproduct that when I reached out to you, it was during COVID, and a lot of folks in your business were home. And it was just, he picked up the phone, obviously. And so that was one of those situations where for us wanting to tell a story, we didn't want to put on a memorabilia exhibit, like a bunch of signed guitars. We wanted tools of the trade. We wanted things that had a connection to you. So I appreciate you thinking about what you wanted to loan us, and people have really gotten a lot of the materials that are in there.
Well, for me, growing up in Joliet, arts was my salvation, right? Playing the drums, once I figured out I wasn't going to get drafted to the major leagues, playing drums was kind of the next best thing. And, when I practiced as a kid, I could have that spiritual upward mobility where you could dream about, okay, what if I practice more than anybody? Or I'm really into this groove. Can I make a go with this? Can I really commit myself to this instrument in a way that's going to allow me to provide for myself, or at least to have a journey in art that's significant to me as a person? And music has been all of that to me. I feel like, any chance I get to give back these days, I just always, this ain't an offer, but I try to say yes to almost anything, just because I feel like the music has given me so much that really I'm in a position now where my job is really just to give back, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you're sitting here, you said yes, so we appreciate that for sure. Tell us a little bit about
just say yes, that could be my button.
Just say yes. It could get you in trouble at some point.
it's probably not a good
So talk a little bit about your family life. Joliet, for those of you that are not from the Chicago area, Joliet's sort of a working class town outside of Chicago. It's got a prison.
Couple prisons.
Couple prisons.
Kind of two prisons with a kind of a minor juvenile detention center, which my father would drive me past every once in a while and just kind of look at me, and he'd look at me, and then he'd look at that, and he'd look at me, and I'd be like, okay, I get the map. Without having to say anything, I knew it. Like, okay.
Wow. Okay. But talk about your family. Actually, what sort of musical upbringing did you have?
So my dad worked on the E.J.N.E. Railroad. So my dad was in steel transportation. My grandfather worked on the E.J.N.E. Railroad. My dad started off shoveling coal on a steam engine. Lied about his age to get into the military to follow his brother into the World War II. Wow. Was a photographer stationed on Guam on a B-29 in the later parts of World War II. Came back, got his honorary diploma from Joliet Catholic, and started to work again on the railroad. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. My oldest brother was born in 47, whatever that. So there's a big age gap.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So I was 5 when my brother Bobby got married. But music was a big part of our household. My dad played clarinet, so it was Benny Goodman 24/7.
Chicago guy.
Right? And I still love that music, and I torture my own kids with it.
Good man.
Especially the septet stuff and sextet stuff with Charlie Christian. So yeah, I grew up with Gene Krupa, and then being the youngest of 6 kids, you know, I had brothers that were listening to The Who or Beach Boys and The Who, and then my brother Paul is a drummer, as I said, so a lot of progressive rock. My sister Laura, funnily enough, was the person that got me really into kind of progressive jazz, Return to Forever, Weather Report, those types of things.
Oh, yeah.
Really wasn't a musician, but was really in tune with kind of what was going on, was a big fan of like Ricky Lee Jones, Steely Dan, introduced me to Steve Gadd. So probably of all the family members, probably the biggest influence on me was my sister Laura, who didn't play and sadly passed away a few years ago. But just a great person, great soul, and just like musicophilia, right? Just besotted with music and just loved it. And then, you know, went to Joliet Catholic, went to St. Jude's School for 8 years, which was super cool. 25 kids in a private Catholic school where we all just kind of had a great time, learned a lot, had a lot of really significant teachers. Mrs. Fink, my first grade, second grade teacher, and my 8th grade teacher. She was a huge part of my life. Somebody I check all the time with my kids, because she taught me how to be responsible, how to be accountable, how to have self-value. And you know, as I get older and I have my own kids, and I think about where she was at in her life and where I'm at now, it's so. Like I said, I'm so grateful to have had her for a teacher. I did an interview on GN yesterday, and they were asking me if there were any teachers that had an impact on me, and I was like, yeah, of course, about Barb Fink. I mean, she was like a family member.
Wow.
Went to Joliet Catholic for 1 year, got kicked out. Yeah, I was that kid. I hit somebody with a shovel while the priest was looking.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that.
And they sent some letter to my house. My dad never let me look at it, but he was like, you're going to public school next year. I said, you mean the school where there's girls? Oh, bummer.
Sounds like there was a plan.
Yeah.
All I need is a shovel and I can get to the school with girls. Okay.
So, right. So I went to Joliet West for only 2 years, left school at like 15, and started playing professionally. Started playing with everybody I could convince to let me play. So I played with Eddie Carosa, Polka Party. I played on the Polka Party television show on Saturday nights, right after the fishing show. It was on Channel 26, the Spanish station. So the only 2 English-speaking shows were Babe Winkleman's Fishing and Eddie Carosa's Polka Party. It's on the top of the Board of Trade building every Saturday night. And then I would do the Baby Doll Polka Club on 55th and Central. Right at the end of runway, whatever, 6, the planes would come right to the window while you're playing.
It's a good look. It's a
with
good
Eddie
background,
Carosa Sr., but that was a great gig. And then played with the blues band, like I told you, the Mojo Blues Band, which was incredible. And then joined a band called JP and the Cats when I was about 18.
Oh, yeah.
And ended up playing with them because it was a solid gig, and they played 30 shows a month, and I could make a living doing that. And the band was super hot, great players. We had 4 front singers, a full horn section, and we were doing like West Side Story, fun stuff.
Yeah, they were a big band for a long time.
Yeah. I played with that band right up till the point I joined the Pumpkins.
All right, I want to stop you right there. So I really love this story. Everybody wants to know how you ended up in the Smashing Pumpkins. I think they also want to realize that the person you replaced in the Pumpkins was not human. So can you enlighten us with that one?
Yeah, so I had, in the midst of my playing with all those bands, I had done some recording with this guy, Dave Zakowski, who owned this studio in Lockport, Illinois, called One Room Studio. And I'd also done some work with this kid, Dale Miner, who was a busboy at the restaurant that my sister Laura waitressed at. So unbeknownst to me, at the same time that I was recording there was a band called The Marked that was making a demo there, which Dale Miner eventually became a member of that band. And that band was led by Billy Corgan. So the Marked recorded their demo in Lockport. The Marked moved to Florida and played as a band in Florida for a year. I had joined JP and the Cats and it kind of moved on from recording with Dave. Billy Corgan had moved back to Chicago after the Marked broke up and started the Smashing Pumpkins with James Iha and not Darcy yet, but this guy named Len. And started writing songs, making demos with James, started playing a few gigs, met Darcy at a gig at Avalon,
Oh, yeah.
right? Used to be Tuts.
Right, second floor.
Right?
Yep.
So met Darcy, they got in an argument right off the bat, of course. She joined the band. They played as a trio with a drum machine. At some point, Billy submitted a tape to the Metro because the Metro was like the holy grail. It was like Mecca for bands in 1987, 1988. It was like the big deal, kind of, you've made it for a local band who was doing their own stuff. And Joe Shanahan, who I knew through another acquaintance of mine, this guy David Crumball, who moved from Joliet to Chicago, was a barback at the Metro, so used to sneak in there, full disclosure, and have a few beers with David. So I knew Joe a little bit. Joe kind of knew I was a drummer, but when he heard Corgan's demo, he goes, well, this is incredible music, but you can't play here without a drummer. He goes, told Billy, he goes, you guys need to go find like your John Bonham. And so Billy, kind of put the word out. A friend of his, this guy Nick, walked into a record store where Dave Zakowski from One Room Studio was working. It was like a Hegwish or one of those, and said, hey, Billy's back in town. He's got this band, the Pumpkins. They're looking for a drummer. And Dave said, oh, you should call Jimmy. Jimmy can come in and he'll play whatever. He can play anything, right? So next thing I know, I get a phone call from this guy, Corgan. Hey, I heard you're a good drummer. Do you want to check out our music? I said, yeah, I don't care. Send me the tape, right? So he sends me the tape. I listen to it. The songs are really good. Obviously, it's just a drum machine, so I'm thinking like, okay, I want to play the Metro, but I don't want to be in a band where I'm just replacing the drum machine. Right. So I'll do the gig and then I'll just move on. Showed up at rehearsal in my usual Joliet garb, right, with my stonewashed jeans and pink T-shirt on and my mullet haircut.
Nice.
And my 280Z and my banana yellow Gretsch kit because I was, in an homage to Tony Williams, the great jazz drummer.
Right.
And I walked into this room and here's this guy, 6'4", he's got a black turtleneck and purple hair and a medallion, and these other people look like witches, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, okay, I'll be home by 10, right?
This will be a quick day. Yeah.
So I walk in, and as I'm setting up my kit, I see James and Darcy like over in the corner going like this ain't never gonna work. Like this guy, like no way. And of course I had learned all the songs, right? I was a professional musician at that time, so I learned all the songs. I showed up no notes and knew all the songs just by memory, and we started playing, and it sounded pretty decent. I mean. And Billy and I started talking over the next, it was about 2 weeks maybe till the gig at Metro. And Billy and I started talking. We started to get closer and closer. I learned that he was a progressive music fan as well. We started talking about my interests. He started asking me to play kind of more what I would play giving me more kind of liberty to do what I wanted to do. And next thing I know, like, we're playing music that's like in my wheelhouse, right? We're starting to play the music that became the music on Gish. Early versions of that stuff, I Am One, Bury Me, those types of songs. And now I'm thinking like, okay, this is a gig like I can sink my teeth into. Next 3 years, of course, I almost starved to death. I was living in my car. I only dated girls with apartments. I mean, I was working.
Very practical.
Right?
Yes,
I mean, it's like, what do you call a drummer without a girlfriend? Like homeless. That was me, right? I mean, I worked at Cozy's bike shop for a few weeks. I want to say like a few years, but it was really a few weeks, because I figured like I'd put my own bikes together, right, as a kid. So when they asked me like if I knew how to put bikes together, I was like, yeah, what do you mean? Doesn't everybody, right? Yeah. So they put me on the assembly line putting bikes together, and they had all these crazy brakes like that I'd never seen before, and it took me like 2 hours to assemble a bike, and I was only making $5 per bike assembled. So after 2 weeks, I went to pick up my pay, and it was like $50. And I was like, all right, I'm done there. And I remember like you had to sign a tag that said like, oh, Jim put this bike together, and then somebody would come in store and buy the bike that I put together, and the rest of the builders would be like, oh my God, watching the person hoping they don't ride it away that they put it in their car. Right? But you know, I was still working with JP kind of on the fringes of that, and I started teaching. We had a rehearsal space above Cubby Bear. And I started teaching drums up there, so started to make a little bit of money, and the band started working more and more. And our thing was, it was our responsibility to kind of feed ourselves, and we kind of had a business agreement at the beginning that we would save all the money that we made from playing gigs. Like we would put it in a bank account and nobody would touch it, barring like a total flame out emergency. So by the time we went to record Gish, we had a record deal, but we paid for it ourselves, right? So we had saved up $30,000. We paid for the record ourselves because we wanted to maintain creative control. We didn't want to take a big advance from a record company and then having some A&R guy come in and tell us that our songs were too psychedelic or there were too many drum fills, God forbid, right?
We wouldn't want that.
No, and that record took off, right? It ended up being the #1 record of college music. So CMJ was album of the year that year, and the band just kind of started taking off from there.
Yeah.
And really, you know, the most important thing about it, and the thing that's most important to me about it today is just the ownership, right? Just having ownership over the music, ownership over my parts, feeling like I'm still a big part of it, right? It's kind of me, by me, the drum parts, and I love it. I mean, we're still making music. We released Sear last year. We just finished recording 33 songs for a new album.
33.
33 songs, yeah. And before that, because of COVID, we recorded a 12-song record that we don't know what to do with, and then we recorded a Christmas record, which we don't know when's coming out. So we've been very busy, but that's just what we do, you know.
Christmas is coming up. I mean, you know.
I think what's interesting about it is the band has kind of landed in the same place where it started, where it's only working because it loves to work, right? Which is that's kind of the whole point of this whole journey, right? To kind of land back to the reasons why you started in the first place. So when I say I'm eternally grateful, that's a big part of it, because I feel like I'm doing stuff for the same reasons I was doing it when I was 8 years old, right? Playing the drums, as you know, being a musician was not an economic decision, right? I mean, if it was a poor economic decision for most people. And I told Lance, you know, people would often ask me, what would you be doing if you're not playing the United Center tonight? And I always say, well, I'd be playing some dump for $50 because I'm a musician, right?
It's in your DNA.
I don't care. I still go and play the Green Mill. I go and play at Hey Nani. I'll play anywhere. I don't care. I set up my own drums. I'm good to just roll up my sleeves and go play because that's what I enjoy doing. I don't do it for any other reason.
Would you like to play a little bit more?
Anything you want, yeah.
You guys want to hear some more?
Yeah, I haven't played that one in a long time. I was like, oh, what comes next?
You figured it out. You figured it out.
I got
a sort of a drumming sort of philosophy question for you.
Uh-oh.
So I did this little research on sort of the mindset of drummers, what makes them special, that kind of thing. There's a Stockholm study that says that there are the people that have the ability to keep time have something in their brains that essentially make them problem solvers and in many ways more musical than many other types of musicians. What's your take on the uniqueness of what it means to be a drummer?
You ever think about being a manager, like my manager?
Yeah.
No.
We'll talk about it later. Yes. My boss is here. That could be a little awkward.
You've articulated that so well. Well, yeah, I mean, there's a study at Northwestern, right? Nina Kraus is a famous neurosurgeon, and she did a whole thing on metronomic ability and cognition, right? And they've taken people with disabilities, learning disabilities, or early stage dementia, and taught them cadences on the drum kit and watched their cognitive ability go up. I mean, it's, Roy Haynes is a good example. Roy Haynes has been playing drums. He's 93, 94 now. Roy started playing with Charlie Parker in 1939. I've known Roy since 1994. I mean, in late 1960s, he was had making music for 40 years almost, right? 30 years almost. And now Roy is still making music. He just played Jazz Fest. He's sharp as a tack. I mean, there's something in the subdivision of, independence, the movement, being able to play 2, 3, 4 things at once that really, I think, keeps you fresh, right? And for me, like, I have a teacher. I still take lessons. I'm studying stuff that if you came to my house you would hear me and you would go, well, that guy obviously doesn't know how to play. Because he sounds like it sounds like a drum set falling out of a truck or down the stairs, right? But it's just, the great thing about drums is never kind of over, right? It's never over. There's always stuff you can continue to do. And there's always, the thing I love about it is it's just, for me, and I'm just, it's my OCD nature, which has worked for me and it's worked against me many times. But I've learned to kind of control it and focus my laser into morning practice, meditation, those types of things that really keep, for me, just like my relationship with my drum set is the oldest relationship I have. Besides for my brothers and sisters, right? My parents are dead. My grandparents are dead. My sister Patty's here. So beyond my relationship with my sister Patty and my other brothers and sisters, the oldest intact relationship I have is with my drum set. And it's really become, a barometer for kind of everything else in my life. Like my relationship with my drum set is predicated on how much I give to it, right? Whether I'm practicing in the morning, whether I'm accountable, whether I'm slacking off, it reflects in everything else that I have to experience. So this is the thing that keeps my marriage together. It keeps me healthy. It keeps me vegan. It keeps me working towards something that I can't do. It keeps me, trying to paint new pictures of self-expression. It's amazing. I mean, and I've fallen out of this relationship before. I mean, I've stopped practicing. I've put it down. I was managing or leading a tech company for 4 years in Chicago, and I didn't play that much. But it's always been, as a drummer, even the act of listening to another drummer is like playing the drums because I'm listening from an educated standpoint, right? Like you would look, like you would look at graphic design or, something like that with an inner knowledge or being kind of let behind the curtain and an awareness of kind of what's going on. But yeah, as far as cognition goes, I mean, it's funny, some of my friends, and one friend in particular, this lawyer guy that I know, Bill, he was always kind of a bit snarky about like drummers, right? And he was always like, well, I was an athlete in high school and, I was pretty coordinated and I think I could come over. And so I said, yeah, if you want to come over, whatever. And so I had offered up a drum lesson as a charity thing for the Children's Hospital. As my son had an illness at some point. So we were big supporters of Lurie and Children's Memorial. And Bill had bid on the free drum lesson. So he calls me up and he goes, hey, guess what? I won the drum lesson. So I'm like, all right, well, come on over, right? So he comes over, he's got his tennis shoes on, and I'm like, okay, like do this with your right hand, right? So, okay, now do this with your foot. Now do this. Epic failure. I mean, no, I mean, look, I've taught drums for many, many years, and I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. This guy was definitely on the ugly side of coordination, and he was blindsided by it. He was like, I had no idea how difficult it could be. So, you know, when you get into doing stuff like when you get into those kind of subdivisions, you know, it takes a long time to figure it out. Like if you play jazz, like those ride cymbal patterns, like my brother came to see me play with Frank Catalano, my brother's a drummer. He's like, man, your right hand sounded really good. How long have you been working on that stuff? And I'm like, 2 years.
2 years.
2 years before I went out and played it. But, you know, that's the other great thing about being a drummer is you're dedicating yourself to these long arcs of growth, right? Like where the stuff that I'm working on it will take me 12 months to get it locked in. But that's okay, because I can do other stuff in the meantime. But at the beginning, it can be pretty daunting, right? It's like a lot of people quit.
Well, you teed it up for me because I was just about to ask you a little bit about jazz specifically, because a lot of people describe
I
your
like
playing.
this chair better than that chair, by
Yeah,
the way.
no, that's cool.
If you don't mind
if you're all
standing.
right like this, we're good. Yeah. So a lot of people refer to you as having jazz roots or whatever, but you have taken the brave step of releasing jazz records and actually looked up the review of one of the Jimmy Chamberlin Complex records. No. And it's actually by Downbeat Magazine, which is another Illinois-based magazine. And I will warn people though, the jazz police, as they're called, are brutal, especially with people who aren't really from the jazz world. And so I would imagine
They don't like my kind.
Having said that, I'm going to read a quote from the review. And this is from your 2017 record, The Parable. And it says, and I quote, on the title track, Chamberlin delivers compelling cymbal work without showboating, while the pianist Randy Ingram adds a cool colorization to a sonic equivalent of an abstract painting. There's a little alliteration there. Overall,
Whatever that
Chamberlin
means.
proves himself to be a gracious band leader, providing a platform for his colleagues to soar. What does that mean to you to have sort of the jazz
In
police?
layman's speak, it means he doesn't mess it up too much. But yeah, I mean, that's, you know, it's a hard door to walk through. And the guys that live in that world that I know and love and are mentors to me are, you know, they're the best artists that we have. I mean, and America has provided us with that music. I mean, my sister Patty will tell you, like we were listening to Benny Goodman and Duke Ellington and Count Basie and Pete Fountain and Artie Shaw when we were kids all day long. I mean, all day long that stuff was playing. And when you heard, you know, when you start to figure out that stuff came from here, you know, it was pretty compelling. I mean, that's a good word for it. It was really legitimate in a way that it still stacks up to, like Duke Ellington. I mean, you could stack Duke Ellington up to any modern artist or anybody in any point in time, and there's a lot there.
Yeah. Switching gears, you've been very open about your struggles with addiction and your successful recovery. We actually have some people in the audience who are in our local recovery community. It's been very, yes, yeah. Thank you. I think it would be interesting for us to sort of have you share a little bit about what sort of got you back on track to be this yoga bending vegan superhero that stands before us.
What?
Oh yeah, your yoga. I mean, he's like a year older than me, and I'm like this garden gnome. I don't know what's going on.
You know I'm so envious of your beard, so let's not even get into it, right? So yeah, I mean, look, I had tried to get sober many, many times and failed miserably every time. I mean, I had a lot of, internal growing up to do. There was codependency that was rampant in my family. I was a child of alcoholics. I grew up, learning. I knew how to be an alcoholic really before I knew much else. And I also knew that I wanted to be an alcoholic just because the world that I lived in was very confusing and abusive, depending on kind of which way you looked at it. But struggling with that disease, you realize that, it's not something that you kind of turn off and turn on. It's really a psychological, spiritual, low self-value issue that's really predicated on acceptance, right? And non-judgment and compassion. And I struggled. Like, I got fired from the band. I had problems with drugs. We had people die. It didn't make me get sober. I went on a
Thank you.
I went on a spiritual journey unknowingly that led me to sobriety. I started to look at mystic Christianity and Rosicrucianism. I could never really get into the AA program. I never really, and I love it, and I have many, many friends that are in it. And I went through treatment at Hazelden and fellowship and went to many, many meetings. I'm 19 years sober still. But it was really, for me, as I said, like, the way I approached my drum set is the way I approached my addiction, right? It was full tilt. And when I got fired from the band, rather than get healthy, I got my pro racing license and went and raced automobiles for 2 years, which was, another way to transpose what I was dealing with into something equally dangerous as rock and roll. When I got asked to come back in the band, it was further justification that I could continue to drink and still be a great drummer. And so I continued to party and be irresponsible and suffer from my disease. And it wasn't until I met my wife, Lori, and we were still kind of hanging out and partying. She was a lot younger than me, so we would pal around and go to Vegas and those types of things. And somehow she convinced me to get married, and I was like, dude, you do not want to marry me, and I don't want to get married either. But she, and this is what you'd call like a true moment of clarity if you're in the program. I had this crazy party at my house one night, and she walked up to me and she goes, "If you don't marry me, you're an idiot." Right? And I thought, okay, whatever. And I remember waking up the next day going, why does this bug me so much, right? And then a year later, we continued dating. A year later, we got married. And a year after that, we had my daughter, Audrey. And that's when it became, looking at my life, looking at her life. She's from Pittsburgh originally. She grew up in the same kind of cyclical, alcoholic recidivism that I grew up in. She said to me one day, when I was about to go to treatment for what was going to be the last time, she said, look, it's up to us to break this cycle. And the most punk rock thing we could do at this point in our lives, you having done everything you've done, is quit drinking and raise kids as responsible adults, right?
That's pretty punk rock.
I was like, yeah, kind of, right? So off I went to kind of figure it out, and came back and basically quit drinking and quit doing everything else in order to raise my daughter in a world where escapism wasn't an option. And that's been, it was literally like putting this stuff on this side of the scale and this stuff on the other side of the scale, and seeing the love of my family and my daughter tip the scales greatly in their favor, right? And then it was a rocky road the first couple years. I mean, as any alcoholic knows, just because you quit drinking doesn't mean you're not a drunken you-know-what. So, I still had I was still the same Jimmy inside, brutal Jim, as some people used to call me. But I managed to get through 3-4 years and put some good time behind me. And I just started to get into health instead of non-health, and accountability as opposed to non-accountability, and reverence and gratitude as opposed to ego and non-gratitude. And those things, you know, when you experience them for long enough time, they become very addictive themselves and very infectious. And now I've got a 20-year marriage. I love my wife. I'm super happily married still. She's my partner, friend. My daughter is first year in college at Sarah Lawrence. She got a scholarship. She's studying to be a playwright. My son is a 2-time state champion gymnast. He's 15. He's bigger than I am. He's gone from being my son to being my opponent.
Oh boy. They don't get any smaller, I'll tell you.
I mean, this kid is, yeah. And he's, you know, got all of my kind of temper, and as, you know, Patty would know, he's got a little bit of my brother Bobby's temper, which is a scary thing. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I'm just out here doing my deal, living in gratitude and trying to give back as much as I can and inspire people with my actions as much as my words.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're grateful for you.
I'm not saying I'm always successful, right? I could still be a schmuck. I mean, I'm still, you know, it's not like I'm not a schmuck. I'm just working on it, and it's just all we can really do, right? It's just put one foot in front of another and try to go and, you know, as we say in the program, like, make this day a better day than yesterday. And if you put enough of those days together, your past becomes not too bad, right? And live in present time. Don't get too caught up in the future, and try to just put good days beyond, in front of you.
Wonderful. You want to play one more tune for us?
I do, yeah.
And we'll take some questions from the audience. Okay,
okay, cool.
All right. That's pretty awesome. Oh, yeah. That was awesome.
Thank you. You sit?
Yes. That was awesome. I want to
you.
make a couple of quick
That's a fun
announcements.
song to play.
Yes, sir. Yes.
That's one I remember. We play that one all the time.
I want to thank a couple people, the administration here that supports the exhibits. I want to mention Vic Salazar.
Oh yeah, Vic Salazar.
Vic
the
Salazar
man.
is Jimmy's tech, and he's amazing, and he was so
He's not
instrumental.
really my tech. I'm his drummer. That's what it
Oh,
is.
okay. We know who drives that train. Okay,
Oh,
good.
yeah.
I
Fix
want to
the
thank
glue.
my tech team here that put on this great event. Please give them a round of applause.
Yeah, I mean, the
Yeah.
sound, everything sounds
Yeah,
so
they know what
good,
they're doing,
right?
don't they?
I mean, it's better
make us-
than 99% of the things like this I do. So
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
we'll take that. Absolutely. Okay, we've got Joe Crane in the audience there. If anybody has a question for Jimmy, raise your hand.
All right, I see somebody right down there in front in the middle, so I'm going to hand them the mic and ask them to wait and ask the question once they've got the mic. I saw his hand go up, so if you want to pass
All
it
right.
back.
this is like let's make a deal, right? who's got a bobby pin?
What do we win?
Which,
Joe's going to give you $50 for it. Yeah.
So Frank Zappa used to say that if you had a good beat, that any music you put on top of it sounded better. Do you agree with that?
Yes. I agree with anything Frank Zappa says. So.
yeah, nobody.
Yeah, I mean Zappa was obviously a huge influence in my career, and I played Apostrophe for my wife, who's not a Zappa fan, the other day, and she was like, "Oh my God, this is great!" Right? Because she knows Terry Bozzio and some of the Zappa alumni. Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Patty. It's funny that you're.
Sorry, it's hard to. It's like getting a dental operation or something up there. It's really like.
I heard Patty. I was like, there's not a whole lot of Patty, so I thought it was cool that your sister's named Patty. But and I just really admire your courage to be here, and I'm just so appreciative of you being here and telling your story, especially regarding the addiction and all that. That's just phenomenal.
Thank you.
And it's very helpful for the world. I have a silly question, but it's just what came to my mind is like they announced that you won Grammys, and I've never been or seen or met anyone who has, and I was just wondering like what is it like to like have worked so hard? I mean, pianists don't even go there, but it's like I understand like when you say it takes like a year to learn just that one technique, and then to have the to get that. That recognition. I know that's not probably what it's for at all, but I'm just wondering, what's it like to win a Grammy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, it's one of those things that it just kind of hits you in waves, right? It's like having a baby where you think like, I remember when we got home with Audrey and she started crying and I told her to just go get the Dr. Sears book, right? Like, what do we do now, right? It's kind of like one of those moments where you're just thinking like, is this real? Did this really happen? I mean, yeah, it puts you in some rarefied air for sure, and it's another, I guess, another way that the universe is telling you that you like this, you're doing what you should be doing, and you belong, right? I mean, it's. To be an artist, it's always kind of being an outsider, right? And I've always been an outsider. I still, like my kids think I'm weird. Most people think I'm weird. But, to get that, to be legitimized like that as an artist is pretty cool. I will say that for me as a drummer, and like a drummer first and a rock guy second, and always, like my first Modern Drummer cover was probably a bigger moment for me than my Grammy, because that was a magazine I had been reading and dreaming about since I was a kid, right? So everybody from Steve Gadd to Jim Gordon, Keith Moon, I mean, everybody was on the cover of Modern Drummer that I loved, right? And my heroes. So when I was on that, it was like, okay, I got more in common with John Bonham than I do with Lionel Richie, right? I mean, or whoever else won that year. But yeah, no, it was a great kind of validation of our work. People can say whatever they want about, those types of things, but it's pretty cool.
So is it on the mantle? Or is where you've got two? So where
We had an old piano that we moved out of the house. It used to be on the piano, and now it's, believe it or not, it's down in my studio. So,
I believe it.
so yeah, it's
At least
down
it's not
there.
a doorstop.
It's been banished to the basement by my wife. But yeah, it's amazing, and it's very heavy too.
Hi, I wrote my question down. I didn't think I'd even get to ask it, so I didn't want to forget it, so I wrote it down. I'm a little OCD also. Many people are familiar with your sound when you play with Smashing Pumpkins, myself included, but not many people may know about Jimmy Chamberlin and Complex and your more recent experimentation with the kind of instrumental rock, jazz, funk fusion. Having my own experience of dealing with a loved one's addiction, I noticed the songs on your 2020 EP Honor have the titles that express concepts that some may associate it with recovery from substance abuse. So my question is, how has your relationship with music evolved throughout your career, and how has your recovery influenced that progression?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the titles on Honor were very much kind of reflective of what I saw. Somebody asked me, and I didn't really have an answer, and I said I just thought that those were the things that were lacking in today's culture, right? Integrity, those types of things that have seemed to be at a discount now instead of very expensive. But yeah, I mean, being healthy has everything to do with my relationship with music. It just redefines my commitment to my journey. It just tells, it's like, I was telling somebody today, they were asking me, and I wasn't just preaching, but somebody asked me, like, what does this all mean? And I said, look, when you put bad things into your body, whether it's a hamburger or a pill or a joint or a beer, you're telling yourself, you're lowering your self-value, right? And I'm not trying to be preachy, but this is just how it affects me. Like when I feel like I'm doing those things, I feel like I'm telling my body that I don't really care that much, or at least I don't care right now. And I'm not saying I'm like some health paladin. I mean, I broke down and had a donut the other night because my wife was eating a jelly donut, and I was like, oh my God, and I have a bite of that. So it's not, as we say, progress, not perfection, right? But having that conversation, as we all know in recovery, and not to make this about recovery, but it's about having that honest conversation with ourselves, right? It's that moment where the big book says, like, those that can't get honest really can't get sober, right? And those that can't have those honest conversations in that quiet moment where they really break down themselves and really ask themselves the questions of, like, why are you doing this? Like, where does this come from? Why are you doing it? And, my doctor says it's like if you went and kicked that wall, right? And you kicked the corner of the wall and you had a sore on your foot. It's just like, if you don't kick the wall for 2 days, your foot starts to heal. As soon as you stop kicking that wall, your foot starts to heal. If you go back and kick that foot every day, your foot's going to get worse, right? And it's the same as you do with your body. When you put bad things into your body, you're not healthy, blah, blah, blah. And again, I'm not trying to be preachy. It's just, for me, I was so over the line with abuse and alcoholism and drug addiction that the only way for me was really to go full tilt vegan and and really police myself the other way and become as obsessive compulsive about health as I could about the bad stuff. So again, I mean, it's just everything about my journey in music has gotten better. And not just because I quit drinking, but like becoming vegan 3 years ago. When we did Sear, this is a good example. So when we did Sear, we had 22 songs to record, and we had given ourselves 30 days to record the drums. So I had the songs, Billy and I were working on them. We figured a song a day and enough time on the edges if we wanted to rearrange something. I finished the drums for that record in 6 days.
Whoa.
I mean, and I wasn't working out. I'm not, he calls me yoga guy. I'm not an exercise guy. I hate exercise. I'd rather not eat a hamburger and not have to exercise than eat one and have to exercise. I'm like, I get my exercise over here. I don't want to get on a treadmill and beat up my body. But really the neuroplasticity benefits of good eating choices, for me, it just got to the point, and it gets to the point where it's just, I'm not going to mortgage that stuff for eating poorly or having those poor conversations with myself, or really, not giving myself that self-value. And that a lot of that stuff stems from the way I was raised. I was raised in a family where it was okay to poison yourself on a daily basis and then just go to work or go to church and go to confession, right? It's and it wasn't just my parents, it was every parent on the block. And I just, when I had kids, I just ran like hell from that stuff because I just didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to raise my kids in that environment. And again, I don't care if Vic eats burgers. My wife eats regular, my son eats chicken, I make him chicken on the grill. I don't care about that stuff. It's just about me, right? I don't judge other people for whatever they do. It's just for me, for my relationship with that and my family and Lance, everybody to be intact, I've got to be doing that stuff as well, or else I feel like a hypocrite, right? I can't be up here talking about all this stuff and then go home and make a martini. I was telling Vic, I used to drink so much vodka that my cat Scout he was addicted to the olives that would get left in the bottom of the martini glass. The poor cat I get up in the morning and the cat would be drinking martinis trying to get the olive out of the bottom of the glass and be like, "Whoa, what's going on, Scout? You want me to make you some bacon?"
Hangover from your olives?
Yeah, God bless that cat. But that cat liked to party, man. But yeah, I hope that makes sense. I know I like to blather, but.
Thank you.
Jimmy, did you get a chance to talk?
Can you speak up, please?
Yeah, did you get a chance to ever talk jazz with Charlie Watts?
No. But the guy Bill that I told you couldn't play the drums, he did for some reason. He saw Charlie at Ronnie Scott's in London and is a huge music fan and got there early and watched Charlie set up his own kit.
Yeah.
Played with the Ronnie Scott's big band, and then when the band quit, Charlie had a beer and tore down his own drums, threw them in his car, and was just kind of hanging out. And that's, from what I know about Charlie, he was just that kind of a guy. And it's that's what it's all about, right? To be like a Rolling Stone and be accessible. And I had met Mick Jagger and Keith Richards a couple times, and they were two of the nicest people, super, super humble, super music fans. If any of you have read Keith's book, it's a history lesson on music.
Oh, yeah.
They were so into the U.S. blues, Chicago blues. They came and recorded at Chess. The Stones are the real deal. The real deal. God rest Charlie's soul, man.
I think we have time for one more. Anybody else have one?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Jimmy, of all the places you've ever... Yeah.
Can you take your mask?
Sure. Of all the places you've ever played in the world, is there one place that you feel like is really special, and every time you play, you or any one of the iterations that you've played with, you're going to have an amazing show?
I'm Springfield.
Right.
Right? Chicago is always a great time. Once I make sure that everybody's got their guest list sorted out and Patty and Carl can get in, and then my Aunt Barbara's got a parking spot. It's always a great show. But yeah, Chicago is always the show. LA and New York are cool. Some of my favorite places like overseas, there's a place called the Paradiso in Amsterdam that's an old converted church. It's about the size of the Metro. And it's just one of those rooms that you play and it's like everything kind of slows down a little bit. It gets kind of this dreamy sound, and we've had some great, and whenever we play there, we always open with like Soma or Hummer or something like Down, just to get the mood kind of going, because the room it's kind of that kind of room. So that's a cool place. Literally anywhere. I always say, like, wherever I'm playing, that's my church, right? Like this place or my studio, my basement, is a pretty sacred type of thing.
Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you, Jimmy, for being here. It was an amazing night. Can we get a round of applause?